So basically, so for persons who may not know you, because it's almost like a fresh face for me as well.
Mhm.
For persons who have not known you, you can just introduce yourself.
So my name is Danielle Greer. I am a clinical and community psychologist. I'm also a teacher, a coach, and a human rights activist. I did work at GrenCHAP from 2019 to 2021. No, it was 2018 to 2021. Um, so I've done a lot of work with LGBT populations through GrenCHAP and just on my own. I live in St. Lucia now, so I work with Historia Collective to provide like therapy groups for individuals within the LGBTQ plus community.
All right. So my as we get straight into the conversation, the first question is how can we talking about nurturing LGBTQ plus children and a guide for parents, which is essential,
Mhm.
especially in this particular dispensation that we live in. So the first question I'm going to ask you is how can parents create a supportive environment for the LGBTQ child at home?
I think the most important thing at home in other spaces is listening to them. So hearing them out openly and non-judgmentally, being reassuring and validating them, letting them know that you love them. You don't love them any less. In a culture where we receive so many negative messages about being different, reassurance and validation is essential. I also think at home there should be rules and stipulations about who comes into your home. Not everyone can be as understanding as you might want them to be. And so a child's home should really be their safe space. So allowing them that as well.
All right. I'm sorry for my video, but like I say, I'm multitasking right now.
No problem.
Um, and can you tell us what are some common challenges faced by LGBTQ plus youth, and how can parents help navigate them? Which is another probably very essential question.
Okay, so LGBTQ plus youth face many challenges, particularly in the Caribbean. Challenges are around self-love, acceptance, experiencing and handling stigma and discrimination, and finding community. Parents need to arm themselves with information. So do your research, talk to your child, and have a true understanding of what they're going through and what they're dealing with. As I said, just continue to validate and reassure them. Stand up for your child. In many instances, in public, LGBTQ plus children feel kind of alone and victimized. So be bold with your love and with your support for them in public. Children also go through quite a lot in terms of understanding themselves and finding someone to talk to. So finding them support groups, um, being open to have conversations with them, even maybe getting them to speak with a psychologist can be really helpful in supporting the challenges that LGBTQ plus children face.
All right. And the other question, I mean, we in the Caribbean, right? And there is a lot of myths that goes around as it relates to LGBTQ um issues.
Mhm.
And one might ask, how can parents educate themselves? I mean, the parents that we have today probably are not so much technologically inclined,
Mhm.
whereby they could research and so on. But how can parents educate themselves and their families as it relates to LGBTQ plus issues and the terminologies?
Okay, so in terms of terminology, I know you said people aren't as inclined with technology, but there are lots of resources online, P-Flags, John Hopkins Medical. There's so many things that produce articles and videos about LGBTQ plus terminology and other things related to LGBTQ plus information. But you can also find LGBTQ plus organizations on islands. So particularly in Grenada, there's GrenCHAP. There's spaces within that organization for you to go in and find out a little bit more information. Um, you can also talk to your child. I think that's one of the most essential things within like having a child who is LGBTQ plus, talking to them openly and frankly about like what you do get, what you do understand, what makes sense to you, and have them hopefully feel comfortable enough to be open with you and help you understand where they're coming from.
Right. And what role does open communication? Communication is primarily a pivotal thing in terms of our everyday lives. Whether you're LGBTQ, whether you're straight, whatever it is, but communication is pivotal.
Mhm.
But what role does open communication play in fostering a healthy relationship between parents and the LGBTQ plus child?
Open communication is essential. It's if you don't have anything else, it's the one thing you should have that will help you help your child and foster a relationship where children feel comfortable enough to have those conversations. So try to be as supportive as possible in the ways that you communicate with your child. Make sure they know that they can come to you. Support them in all the ways that they may be asking you because generally, LGBTQ plus children do have very common mental health issues, and being supportive and being there for your child is one of the ways that you can navigate or you can avoid your child going through depression, and sometimes they encounter suicidality. So being as open with them and having them feel comfortable with you to communicate with you can prevent some of these mental health issues.
All right. And earlier you did mention being able to stand up for your child, um, in LGBTQ circumstances or
Mhm.
LGBTQ issues. Um, but the question now would fall as to talk to us about how parents can advocate, and that is elaborating on the comment that you made earlier. Um, Talk to us about how parents can advocate for the LGBTQ plus child and the rights and safety in various social settings. You did make reference to being able to stand up, but just elaborate on that for us.
Okay, so advocating for your child really means showing up for them in spaces they may not be able to show up for themselves. So having conversations with people in authority who interact with your children, that would be like teachers, principals, and talking to them about their general attitudes towards LGBTQ plus population and the ways that they're interacting with your child or children. You may want to also point out microaggressions in people's speech. People say a lot of things they don't realize can be harmful for LGBTQ plus children. And so making sure you know what they are and informing others about those things that come up in conversation. Having conversations with other parents about your expectations on how your child should be treated when they're in their company or how their child treats your child. And doing research on spaces that are inclusive of your child's identity. So anything like extracurricular activities, or even the doctors that you go to, the psychologists that you might see, making sure that all of these people who you're interacting with or who your child has to interact with is LGBTQ plus friendly.
All right. Um, that's a lot of good stuff. And it leads me to the strategies in
Mm,
our neck of the woods. Sometimes you have parents who would accept, whether you say accept, tolerate, or embrace that their
mhm.
child is actually LGBTQ plus. But then how and what strategies can parents use to address the discrimination, which is a very critical thing in communities or even schools, knowing that your child is LGBTQ and what may happen in the community or even when they go to school or in social gatherings. So what are some of the strategies that parents can use to address the discrimination or bullying targeting the LGBTQ child?
So I think in some spheres, we won't always get to mitigate the bullying and the discrimination that comes. with being different, which is sad, but in that way, we have to be able to validate our child. So when they come into the home, we're making sure that we are giving them a positive environment to come into. And you don't have to validate them only about things that have to do with their sexuality or gender identity, but validate them in all aspects of their lives, how well they're doing in school, the things that they might be doing extracurricular wise. Make sure you are using inclusive language so they feel safe when they come home, and that can mitigate some of the issues they might have um, with discrimination and bullying when they come home. So they might not be avoiding it so much in public, but they feel safe when they come home. I did say talk to teachers and principals. So a good way to do that is to be as involved as possible in your child's life. So join the PTA, join anything that makes you a very present person in the activities that your child is doing, particularly in the school, because that's where they spend most of their time. Being a very active member of the PTA can help you inform some of the ways in which the schools decide that they will tackle discrimination and bullying within the school that they are at. In terms of discrimination and bullying in other settings, it really is about speaking up and letting individuals know that this is not okay, and letting people know that you are there to fight for your child. Your child is not alone. They do have you with them to support them.
All right. So I want to also now touch on the what you call the misconceptions and the biases.
Mm,
You may have a family or parents who have, let's say, two children. One of them may be LGBTQ, and
mhm.
the biases of saying that, oh, you are this or you are that, and the misconceptions. So, how can parents address their own biases or misconceptions about the LGBTQ identities?
Parents need to be patient with themselves. They have been steeped in a culture that is opposed to sexual and gender diversity, and a lot of unlearning needs to happen for them to be able to fully embrace an LGBTQ plus child. Um, Sometimes you can find that having conversations with the child um, helps parents overcome some of that discomfort. Again, it's getting the knowledge of what it is and what your child is going through. It also can be slow work. So you can start by um, getting just information on what their label means. So a child may be lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer. What does that even mean for them? And how are they navigating that in their lives? It really is about the open communication that we spoke about earlier. I think when we start from love, you can really break down biases when you start from love. So you can start from, I love you, I don't understand it, but I'm here to support you and you can help me understand a little bit more. There are also LGBT organizations. Organizations are essential in providing the information. And they're good spaces to, if you and any other parents of LGBTQ plus children want to meet and have those conversations among yourselves, that's a place you can go in and say, we want to do this thing, and organizations will help and support you to do those things.
Right. And as we play on that subject, it brings
Mhm,
me to the support. A
mhm.
parent might want to know, oh, where do I go to support? I mean, especially if you're not used to these type of things, you would want to know the support. I can't do it alone. So, what support networks or communities, organizations exists for parents of LGBTQ children?
Well, it depends on where you are, but on island, like in Grenada, there is GrenCHAP. Um, Online, you can access organizations like PFLAG, which is parents of lesbian, gay individuals. You can access ECADE. as well, which is a regional organization, who can put you on to other organizations within your country, that can help you. I would also say you can look out for um, coaches or therapists who are LGBT friendly, who can also help you um, create spaces for individuals like yourself who are looking to find more community for parents of LGBTQ plus children.
All right. And in situations like these, sometimes you find your truth, and your parents will be able to celebrate with you that at least you found your truth, and you're living your truth, which is important. Your peace of mind and being able to live that lifestyle that you want to live.
Mm-hmm.
So how can parents celebrate and affirm the LGBTQ plus child's identity while respecting their autonomy and their individuality?
I think some of the things we spoke about before, just making sure you use inclusive language, giving them space and time to express themselves in ways that they want, including the ways that they dress, the ways that they decorate their spaces. Find out from them the things that they need and see what makes sense for you to get for them. So allow them to express their interests. That could be letting them pick out movies or pick out activities for you to do together as a family. Um, it could be making sure that you and those around you are speaking that inclusive language that I was talking about earlier.
And then I want to finally touch on the resources that are available. We did talk about that. We talked about GrenCHAP, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but if we could expound on the resources that are available for parents. We all know we're in the age of, Google. You could Google anything that you want to. But outside of those, what are the resources available for parents who need guidance on supporting the LGBTQ child's identity?
Okay. Because I think in terms of resources, what came to mind was the LGBTQ plus communities in country. So GrenCHAP in St. Lucia, there's United and Strong, and IKEA is also here. In Trinidad and Tobago, there's Silver Lining Foundation, CAISO, lots of different places within Trinidad and Tobago that you can get that kind of support. St. Vincent, I believe, is Vincy Chap. And then I would suggest going to someone who is a coach in that area, which I am. Um, so you can go to a coach and they can help you figure out certain things that are related to the resources that you might want um, in raising an LGBTQ plus child, because it's not only about the child's identity, but restructuring the ways in which you think about sexuality and gender identity, and that you may be able to get that from a coach or a psychologist.
It's the
Okay.
first time I actually get to interact with you. And I'm certain
Yeah,
that it would not be the last.
right.
So I want to say on behalf of GrenCHAP and its supporting partners, a
Mhm.
very special thank you. This conversation probably would go 1,000 miles for a parent or parents who have to deal with this issue of having an LGBTQ plus child in their household. Um, so a very special thank you. And I do trust that we would cross paths again in the not too distant future.